Hi, how's it going? This is Resident of Collinwood for YouTube, back with another Dark Shadows video for you guys and gals here today. Um, I'm going to do this video, and then I'll be doing a video tonight about The Prisoner with Patrick McRae and Gordon Demowski. So, this video is Barnabas versus Barnabas. Barnabas Collins versus Barnabas Collins. No, it's not Jonathan Frid versus Ben Cross. I already did that video. This is Jonathan Frid versus Jonathan Frid. In fact, this will be a fun one. It's the 1967 vampire from the series that he played, and the Barnabas Collins he played in the series, and the Barnabas Collins he played in House of Dark Shadows. What are the similarities? What are the differences? You know, by the way, huge shout out to my buddy Mark Gilman, because I'm going to use a lot of the pretext me and him talked about with this. When you look at Barnabas from the series, yes, he's a bit of a menace. But he's not a full on menace. Um, and really, too, it helps that your first victim isn't an innocent bystander. Your Barnabas's first real kill in Dark Shadows in the original series isn't some goody two shoe. It isn't an innocent person. It's a thief. It's a con man. It's Jason McGuire. Um, and I think that's what really helps Barnabas out too. That's not the only thing. One of the two biggest things is now we all know the writers didn't know where they were taking Barnabas. That's the beautiful part about it. Number two, Jonathan Frid's performance, because of not knowing where the writers were going to take him. Jonathan played the character very sympathetic, even when before he ever has an interaction with Maggie or anyone. He has an interaction with Josette's portrait that I have quoted many times here on this channel. And he says to her, "I was a Collins. Where were you when my father, when I was turned to something even my own father loathed? If his ghost is here with yours, tell him I've come home. To live the life I've never had. I'm free now and alive." And alive is a loose term. He's undead, but it's a really it's a conversation where you go, this isn't a guy who's mad. He's not pissed off at the world mad, and he's very he's hurt. He has hurt feelings about what happened because he wasn't expecting to be alive. He was expecting his father, who, we all know how cold blooded Joshua could get. What really we need to talk about in this video here, or what I need to talk about in this video here, is how Joshua's heart started to really thaw out near the end of 1795, and how much it took. Where this really turned was him. I think it really first started to turn when he discovered Barnabas and realized, oh my God, my son's not dead. Now he's undead. Now he's this vampire. To me, it started there, but where it really gets cemented is Naomi's death, because you find out how much Joshua really did love Naomi then, but she's gone though too. This was a woman he loved very dearly. Um, I think those two instances really, with this Barnabas, with the series Barnabas that Jonathan Frid played, those things, do make you feel sympathetic for him because he's lost his mother. His dad somewhat betrays him by not killing him. And you get all that sense when 1795 is explained to you. The conversation with the portrait with Josette's portrait makes all the more sense. Um, Barnabas in the series, again, he's attacking cows, he's having Willie get him prostitutes. So, but again, his first real cold-blooded kill, his first murder that we see is Jason McGuire. Yeah, girls are attacked. Now, what's really interesting about, again, the entire series is Barnabas Collins, his arc is the longest arc in Dark Shadows history. And rightfully so. He's the most popular character in Dark Shadows. Jonathan Frid portrayal of Barnabas is legendary, and it damn well should be. His journeys across time and parallel time are some of the most epic things because here's a man who was a villain in a sense and becomes a hero, and in fact, an anti hero. He's somebody who does everything to save his family and then some. As Sarah tells him, you have to be good. Um, you know, it was Barnabas who taught Sarah the difference between good and evil. Barnabas then does learn okay, I do need to be good. After the Leviathan arc, the because it becomes evil again by serving the Leviathans. The reason I like the Leviathan arc is because Barnabas believes the Leviathans have Josette's ghost prisoner, and in many ways, the the writers deserve a lot of credit because they help this with the interpretation when you see Catherine Lee Scott, Josette pulled into the portrait. It's like, wait, how'd that happen? And then you see the Leviathan. It helps the believability factor that the Leviathans now have a ghost prisoner. Um, it's like, holy crap, that's very powerful stuff. Again, I've talked about this with my buddy Patrick McRae, and I think I've talked about this with my buddy Mark Gilman, that the Leviathan arc is the biggest concept Dark Shadows, to me, in my opinion, ever attempted. Um, just the whole thing of it is amazing. You have these serpent like creatures who are in the form of people, but they have this ability to time travel. They have the ability to seemingly, when you look at the beginning of the arc, seemingly they have Josette's ghost trapped, and that you believe them. Well, they're lying, of course. Uh, Again, Barnabas gets a big redemption arc by telling his backstory in the series. But prior to that, Jonathan Frid's portrayal of here's this vampire he's not just this guy who's out there attacking people. He has a conscience about him. I've always pointed back to the Maggie Evans kidnapping. Before he goes down into the cellar to kill Maggie Evans, which I don't think he was going to, Willie Loomis is talking to him about, no, we don't need to, he started talking him down out of this, trying to talk him out of this. Um, why is if Barnabas is so intent on killing Maggie, why the hell is he even listening to Willie? Though the character isn't introduced yet, this is Barnabas thinking about Ben Stokes, about how this would be Ben's job if Ben were here. And it's a really, though I know the character, I'm giving a lot of leeway here to this series, and yes, I'll plead guilty to my fandom. Um, Guilty, Your Honor. I'll meet you at the gallows. So anyway, but with this, you have this moment where he's listening to Willie, and he has no reason to listen to Willie other than his own conscious self that, yes, this is wrong. If I murder this girl, there's no going back. And I think if he had murdered Maggie Evans, Catherine Lee Scott's character, there would have been no going back. If they actually would have pulled this trigger, it's over. Killing Maggie would have been it. Um, but no, Maggie escapes with the help of the ghost of Sarah Collins, and we get the eventual untimely death later on of Jason McGuire, who's not so sympathetic. He's a thief, he's a con artist, and he's been exposed as such. We all knew Jason was a bad guy, so why not feed him to the vampire? Not quite literally, Barnabas doesn't drain him of his blood, he strangles him to death. So, there's the roundabout way of the series, Barnabas Collins. He's very it's not just what you do, it's who you do it to and who gets killed first. Now the House of Dark Shadows, and I know I'm sort of giving a quick summary of things, but I'm doing that because there's some stuff to get to in House of Dark Shadows as well, and there's a good bit. With House of Dark Shadows, now the biggest question is the Barnabas Collins in House of Dark Shadows, for those who've never seen House or the series, is it played by the same actor? Yes, Jonathan Frid does play Barnabas Collins in House of Dark Shadows, if you've never seen it. Again, I know there are a lot of people who sub to my channel who are Dark Shadows fans, but for this is also for people who have never heard of Dark Shadows. So Jonathan Frid plays Barnabas Collins. House of Dark Shadows is made in 1970. It actually is filmed during when the series is taking place. This is when parallel time is taking 1970 parallel time is taking place. As my buddy Patrick McRae has pointed out in the Dark Shadows Day book, the first one, 1970 is there to sort of the cast that's there is sort of there to babysit the audience, and they do a great job. Um, David Selby, Laura Parker, again, they're not in House of Dark Shadows. They're in Night of Dark Shadows. So with the movie, is this the same Barnabas Collins? No. And we all know where I'm going to go with this. Look, before I get into the line that seals the deal of why this isn't the same Barnabas Collins, I'm going to go back to the series real quick. Who curses Barnabas? Angelique, a witch, his wife. Now, let's go to House of Dark Shadows. I've talked about Angelique in for the series. With House of Dark Shadows, before I get into the line, Barnabas's first attack is on a woman who works for the Collins family. His first kill, his first kill in scene kill is Nancy Barrett, is Carolyn. And that's what really makes in every way where Barnabas isn't a complete menace in the opening series. He's a bit of a menace, but he's not a complete menace. In the movie, he's a 1000% a menace. He's more the menace than anything else. Um, and rightfully so. He's your antagonist. And again, to be fair, Dan Curtis again did want a sequel to this, and it never got made, and that's fine. I'm not going to hold that against anybody, but I do want to make the points that there's a lot to take away from this movie itself when you look at what could have been. Now let's get into the line because I've talked about the actions with House of Dark Shadows. Barnabas does kill innocent people in House of Dark Shadows and he causes death. Now, many people are going to point out, too, I'm not being fair. I'm going to be fair right here. He does tell Carolyn, after turning her into a vampire, to stay away from the family. I sort of look at that very hypocritical because he couldn't stay away from the family himself. He's the one that went into Nancy Barrett's room, Carolyn's room, and bit her in the first place. Now, she doesn't die from that. Here's where she gets killed. I'm going to talk about the line of the line here. So, Barnabas is talking to Willie Loomis, yes, played by John Carlin, in House of Dark Shadows. So, John Carlin and him are, Willie Loomis are talking. He tells Will, he has Josette's music box, and it's beneath the portrait of Josette. And he's talking about how, Maggie is, the reincarnation of Josette. He reminds her, Josette, he's going to marry Maggie Evans and make her his bride. And again, keep in mind, this is pre-treatment. This is pre-Dr. Hoffman, you know, trying to cure him of his vampirism. He wants to marry her, right? He wants to marry Kathleen Lee Scott's character, Maggie Evans. So he says that when they put this curse on me, now I'm going to get back to that here in a second. Nancy Barrett's character, remember, who was bit earlier, walks into the room. I'll never let you have this. And he bites her, completely draining her of all her blood. and she gets back to the great house Collinwood with the help of Willie a bit, but she goes in by herself. She's got blood running down her neck, and she just passes out and dies. This is where the famous scene where the servant, if you will, drops the tray on the floor and wasn't supposed to. Um, Leaves an indent on the floor, I guess. Oh my god. Uh, Only Dark Shadows. I love it. I love it. And so back to the line. Now again, Nancy Barrett's character is gonna die and come back as a vampire. Barnabas did turn people into a vampire in the series. So Dirk Wilkins was somebody he turned first. Now, which is amazing. Dirk Wilkins, my God. Dirk Wilkins is a cold blooded SOB, by the way, in the series. Um, so Barnabas sort of feels responsible for that. But you more feel sympathetic for Barnabas because, again, he was on a crusade. He was on a mission, damn it. He's got no time for games. With the movie, it's more cold blooded. It's way more cold blooded. He's not on a mission. He's not on a mission. He's on a mission more for himself than anyone else. He's more self centered. And I think that's the biggest thing too with the movie. The actors way more the not the actor, but the characters were way more self centered. Sorry. So there's the line. Here's the line. They put this curse on me. Now, to be fair to House of Dark Shadows, this was Dan Curtis did want to do a sequel. I've heard many fans say they were still going to use Angelique. I love Dan Curtis and I love Jonathan Frid and I love Dark Shadows to death. Um, I can't agree with that, and I probably wouldn't have bought it if they had. And it's this line. It's not just the line itself. Think about what he's really saying. He was going to marry Josette in the movie. He plainly says that. And he says they put this curse on me. So he's going to marry Josette, just like he was in the series. Now, again, he doesn't. The similarity is he doesn't marry her in the series, but the biggest difference is Angelique's working behind the scenes not to make that happen. He says here definitively that they were going to get married until they put this curse on me. He doesn't say until somebody put this curse on me or someone. If you word it differently, then you could sort of say, oh, he's meaning Angelique. But he says they, like they, more than one person put this curse on me. It was different. And there's many ways to look at that. Now, many people could say, oh, it could just mean Angelique. Again, I wouldn't have bought that if they had actually made a sequel to House of Dark Shadows and they tried to sell you Angelique. I don't think I would have bought me personally. If you would have, great. I'm not gonna disagree with you. I just don't feel that they could have sold that properly. Consider not just the line, because he's making the conscious effort. I'm not just meaning the actor, I'm meaning the character. The character slash actor is making a conscious effort. This is a different Barnabas than the one we're seeing in the series. And we've already seen that to a degree. So, and we've even, with the death of Nancy Barrett's character, Carolyn, we're definitely seeing it. Um, so you could say, and Mark Gilman, huge shout out to him. He said the Cult of Judas Zachary. Very well could be. Um, it could have been, again, it could have been Countess Natalie Dupre, too, Josette's family. Though she's not mentioned in this movie specifically, I gotta believe she's a part of the story somewhere. Again, just because somebody doesn't get mentioned, and you could say the same thing for Angelique in a sense, just because somebody's not mentioned by name doesn't mean they're not involved. Um, Now, why not, if they were really going Angelique, if they were even considering that, my biggest question would be, why didn't they just say some? Again, they don't have to say Angelique. They don't have to say a name. but you damn sure don't say they. Like, because when he says they, he knows who they are. That's the interpretation I walk away with. When they put this curse on me, when Jonathan Frid, Barnabas Collins, actor and characters say they, he knows who they are. So why does if it's they, if it's well, Angelique, that's just who they are. Then why doesn't he just say it was Angelique? It was a servant. It was somebody who was in love with him. He doesn't mention them. Now I will take away that he doesn't mention they simply because he doesn't want to bring up any more of the past, and he knows who they are, and maybe they're just not around anymore. He gets the feeling they're not around anymore. So I take away that the person who put the curse on him is of mortal flesh and blood, is not was not necessarily a witch themselves. They were just somebody who performed maybe a sacrifice, maybe a ritual act to cause the curse to happen. I don't get the sense that it's witchcraft that put the curse on him. Um, that's what I'm getting at with House of Dark Shadows mainly. Um, Again, too, the character of Barnabas, Jonathan Frid's Barnabas, to me is very different than the Barnabas we get in the series. Again, in the frame of 2 hours, you're getting a much more intense version of Barnabas Collins. You're getting much more of a 100% antagonist. You're getting somebody who is trying to set his own rules, but not necessarily following them himself, uh, which is really interesting. And you could sort of say that Barnabas was always do as I say, not as I do type in the series as well. But with House, it's much more turned up. And I've also talked about this with my buddy John Philip Betancourt. Shout out to him. There's going to be many shout outs in this video. So I've also talked the movies with Christine and Kara. Shout out to them. Um, that Barnabas and Carolyn's relationship in House is turned up to 110 degrees because Barnabas bites Carolyn in the series, but Barnabas doesn't turn Carolyn into a vampire. In House of Dark Shadows, he kills her, turning her into a vampire. And he does it out of a fit of rage, and he's so mad at her. And he doesn't go back. There's no apology given. Like when Maggie says, I wish they could catch the person who did it, he gives this look like, oh, that's me. That's me. Like, yeah, that's you, Barnabas. Oh my god. But really, really great performance all around, no matter what. Yes, there's a big difference, and I've pointed that out. I think I've pointed that out very well here. Now, and I've also pointed out some similarities. Again, the similarities are keep in mind in the series that Barnabas kidnaps Maggie. Now, here's a big difference. Barnabas kidnapping Maggie and taking her prisoner in the series, trying to convince her she's Josette. He doesn't really do that here. He's not, to me, in the movie, he's not really trying to convince her she's Josette. Because when Dr. Julie Hoffman's cure starts working for him, when the blood transfusions and stuff start working, he starts dating her. He's courting her in every sense. So he's not kidnapping her. He doesn't take her by force. Really, the most evil thing he does in the movie is kill Carolyn. But that's evil enough for me. I mean, no offense, when you kill your own family member and drain them of their blood, that on a scale of 1 to 10 of how messed up that is, that rate's about a 20. Um, so, and so that's a sort of difference and similarity with House and the series, that yes, they're taking sort of the Maggie Evans storyline from the series, but they're not completely going off of it. They're making subtle changes, so there's a difference between the movie and the series. And I think that's well done by Sam Hall and Dan Curtis and company to do that. Again, if you're making a movie of Dark Shadows, You don't want it to be a clone of the series because that's not what it's intended to be. Because it wasn't. This was not intended to be a lookalike of the series. Though, again, yes, there are similarities. One of the biggest similarities as well is you have a lot of the cast of the series coming to the movie. Joan Bennett, Kathleen Lee Scott, Ro- Roger Davis, Lewis Edmonds, Thayer David, Grayson Hall, Humphrey Allen Australia. Oh, I don't know if I'm going to get everybody. Um, oh, God, I'm going to mess up on the name here. Oh, my God. Oh, Don Briscoe, um, David Hennessy, again, that's nine actors I just listed off that are in the series that are in this movie. Obviously, Jonathan Frid, that's 10. John Carlin, that's 11. Jesus Christ. And I love this. The movie's fun to watch. It's a great watch. Um, but again, I'm looking at the similarities and differences. Here's where the similarity, and there's a bit of a difference too. Um, who am I missing? The sheriff. The sheriff was played by Dennis Patrick. Now that's the biggest difference too. George Patterson isn't played by Dana Elker or anybody who was from anybody who played the sheriff in the actual series. Dennis Patrick, who's in this movie, plays a hero for once. He plays Sheriff George Patterson. I love his Sheriff George Patterson in this movie, by the way. I wish he'd got a little more screen time, but I love his interaction with people. Um, you also get the guy who played King King Johnny Romano. He's the guy who comes to uh, Jeff Clark and says that Professor Stokes wants to meet him. That's the actor who played King Johnny Romano. So that's 12 actors who were from the series that are in this movie. Now, what's the differences? Okay, the guy who played King Johnny Romano obviously is the easiest. He wasn't playing King Johnny Romano. He was playing somebody who just was a sailor or worked for the Collins family who told Jeff Clark that Professor Stokes wanted to meet him. Um, I think I mentioned Professor Stokes in my initial 12, so I'm pretty sure I did. Um, here's the differences. Again, Jonathan Frid's Barnabas isn't the Barnabas from the series. I would also say that a lot of the characters are just taken from the namesake. They're not literally playing the characters from the series. Sure, there's this weird tension between Liz and Roger, but I can't say it's exactly from the series itself. It might be a bit taken from the series, but there seems to be an underlying tone that we're not getting within the movie. We're not getting the full context of within a 2 hour movie. So I don't feel they're playing the exact same characters from the series. This is my take. Nancy Barrett's Nancy Barrett uh, is the biggest one to me because, and here's why: she is not playing the Carolyn that you fully see in the series. And here's what I mean by this: the Carolyn in the series was very much that we're first introduced to is very much a wild child. This is not that Carolyn Stoddard call, sorry, Carolyn Collins Stoddard in the series. This is a much more mature Carolyn that you see. She's settling down with Don Briscoe's character in the series. They're I believe they're engaged to be married. Um, in the movie, their characters are anyway. So this is a much more adult Carolyn, and she's not this snooty rich girl. She's very much what you get of her very briefly in the movie. She's very down to earth. She's very she flirts a little, but it's not as heavy as in the movie as it was in the series. Um, so again, it's not to me. It's not the same character. Catherine Lee Scott's character, Maggie Evans. Again, you're never introduced to a Sam Evans in the movie. Could you just say this is that Maggie Evans from the series? Here's the thing, no. And here's why. I don't I again when I'm going by when I first was introduced to the character, Maggie Evans was very sassy. We got a very sassy Maggie Evans in the series. I don't get the sass that we get we got in the series. I don't get that from the movie version of Maggie Evans. Sure, she's direct with people, but she's more direct because she wants answers. This is not, we're not getting Victoria Winters here. We're getting Kathleen Lee Scott's Maggie Evans. If we were getting, like, if Alexander Mulkey Isles had done Victoria Winters in the movie, and she's going, well, Lily, what's wrong? I don't think I don't think Alexander would have been like, no, what's wrong? And you sort of get that from Kathleen Lee Scott's Maggie Evans, which I love. Um, Again, there are many differences and similarities between the movie and series. Um, Willie Loomis, is he sort of more? I don't know. Willie Loomis was a tough read for me with the movie because he's somebody who's more of a disgruntled employee than an actual thief. That's the biggest difference here. In the movie, Willie actually is a handyman. Willie isn't a handyman in the series until he starts working for Barnabas. He's a thief. In the movie, he is a handyman. He is working for the Collins family, and that's the biggest difference. That again, there's no Jason McGuire in the movie. Yes, Dennis Patrick's here, but he's here as another character, as Sheriff George Patterson. Um, Humpert Allen Alstredo does not play a warlock. He plays a doctor. He's the doctor who takes over for Dr. Hoffman. Um, Obviously, Grayson Hall's character, you know, huge shout out to Christine and Kara from Between the Shadows. Link to their channel is going to be in the description box. I asked them when was the moment when I think when I first had them on here, I asked them when did Julia first fall in love with Barnabas, and they pointed out when Julia said bite. This was in the series when she said bite me, Barnabas, and I agree. It's right in the series. With the movie, Dr. Julia Hoffman, I would say falls in love with Barnabas very much right away. Very much at first, love at first sight, if you will, within the course of the movie. That she feels if she cures him, that he's going to choose her over Maggie Evans. And that's just not the case within the movie. And she ultimately betrays him within the movie as well. Um, that's the thing, too. With the series, the biggest difference is in the series, Barnabas asked for the injections to be moved up to sort of go faster. And Julia in the series warns him how dangerous that is, and that's unnecessary. And he goes, "I'm the patient, you're the doctor. You do what I say." And so she okay, you wanted, I warned you, and guess what? It backfires and turns his ass old. So it's more Barnabas's fault that the injections fail in the series. Now, in the movie, it is Grayson Hall's Dr. Julia Hoffman's fault. She does betray him. The betrayal is direct by Grayson Hall's Dr. Julia Hoffman in the movie. I'm trying to think if there's anything I missed. Oh, there's the wedding. There's the guys. Well, there's almost a wedding. Maggie is in Josette's dress, and I love the line by Jonathan Fredis. She tells Jeff Clark, "Every wedding needs a witness, and you will be." And you'll be this one. I love that line. Great line by Jonathan Fred. Obviously, um, you know, Willie ends up staking Barnabas, and Jeff Clark assists. Willie Loomis is the ultimate hero of this movie, not Jeff Clark. No offense to Jeff Clark. Uh, so those are the biggest differences. I hope I pointed out enough of a difference to sort of separate the two. I know I talked a lot about the movie and the series, so this wasn't just Jonathan Fred versus Jonathan Fred, Barnabas versus Barnabas, but that's going to be the title of it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. What are you guys' thoughts on the House of Dark Shadows movie and the Barnabas versus Barnabas? The differences. What are your differences and similarities between the movie Barnabas and the series Barnabas? Again, I want to give my shout outs. Christine Pierce, Kara Tillies, Mark, huge shout out to Mark Gilman. He doesn't get enough credit. Uh, huge shout out to John Philip Betancourt, Patrick McRae. First of all, and again, I want to give a huge, huge thank you to everybody who is supporting my channel, has supported my channel. Thank you all so very, very much from literally from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. I mean that. Um, this is a lot of fun to come on here and do. I don't ever want you guys to think this is work. This is not a job for me. I love talking Dark Shadows. This is a lot of fun. And that's what Dark Shadows should be at the end of the day. It's fun. Um, I want to think if there's anything else I missed or just something I didn't take away from. I will say this with the series compared to the movie. I don't compare the two in a sense. Because to me, none of the movies have ever been canon to the series. And they've made that very clear that the movies are an alternate like reality. So um, I do find it interesting that they made the decision to film a movie while the series was going on. That was not only gutsy but ballsy as hell, and just a hell of a job by everybody involved. From not just from the movie side, but from the series side, because there's a lot of responsibility being laid at the feet of David Selby, Laura Parker, and the rest of the people who are at the series end doing their job. Not just the people who are in the movie. So there's that. Guys, gals, I hope you have a great, great day. Oh, there's going to be another link in. I want to give a huge shout out because there's this not just a group, but there's obviously the documentary, the Jonathan Frid group, which I'm going to share this to, and the Jonathan Frid documentary. I want to share a link to where you guys can go get that if you don't have it on Blu-ray. Please go pick it up. It is well worth it. A lot of cool extras. And people are going to say, well, you can watch it on Tubi for free. Yeah, but you can't watch the extras on Tubi, and that's a fact. All right, you can only watch the extras if you own the DVD, and I own that DVD, and the extras are worth it alone. Hell, the documentary is damn sure worth it. Um, Again, thank you guys so much for all the support, and have a great, great day.